My fake online friend turned out to be my real neighbor. I never thought I'd say this, but I managed to accidentally become best friends with my neighbor without even realizing it, online. For months, we talked every single day, shared secrets, made jokes, and even comforted each other during bad days. The crazy part? I thought she lived halfway across the country. Turns out she was literally living across the hall. It all started during the pandemic when loneliness was basically my default state. I had just moved into a new apartment complex in the city after breaking up with my long-term boyfriend. I was exhausted, emotionally fried, and mostly focused on keeping my job together while working remotely. My social life was non-existent. One night, while doom scrolling through Reddit and Discord servers, I stumbled into this cozy little gaming community. It was just a random invite from a friend of a friend, and I joined because people were chatting about the same game I loved, Stardew Valley. It felt harmless. I used a new username, didn't share personal details, and told myself I was just there to relax a little. That's where I met Ray. At first, she just seemed like another chill member of the group, always active, quick with memes, and weirdly good at comforting people. She was the kind of person who could turn any awkward conversation into something easy and warm. Within a week, I found myself talking to her more than anyone else. We started DMing privately, sharing playlists and recipes. She told me she lived in another city about 2 hours away. She worked remotely in marketing, loved tea, and had a cat that she constantly complained was judging her life choices. It was all so normal, relatable even. Over time, she became part of my daily life. We'd message while working, talk late at night, and joke about how weirdly similar we were. She was like a version of me with more confidence. Then little things started to feel familiar. She mentioned living in an apartment with thin walls and loud neighbors. She said her building had an awful elevator that kept getting stuck between floors. She once even complained about the couple who always argues near the laundry room. That hit me. I was the one arguing with my ex near the laundry room before we broke up. But I brushed it off. Maybe it was a coincidence. There were probably hundreds of similar apartment buildings around the city. Still, weird coincidences kept piling up. One night, I was venting about a delivery mix-up. My groceries had been dropped at the wrong door. She immediately typed back, joking that someone nearby probably got a week's worth of free snacks. I laughed until she mentioned the brand name of my favorite coffee, which I never told her. It felt eerie, but I laughed it off again. Ray was playful, sharp, and always somehow guessed things about me. I figured she was just intuitive. The final straw came one evening when there was a power outage in my building. Total blackout. I messaged her right away complaining about it. Her reply came instantly, "Oh, thank God, I thought it was just my unit." I froze. I reread it 5 times trying to rationalize it. My heart was racing. My building? My unit? There was no way. I stared into the dark room, phone glowing against my hand, and typed back something vague, just to see how she'd react. She responded almost immediately, describing how creepy the hallway looked without lights. The hallway I was sitting in. That's when I realized she wasn't joking. Ray was in the same building. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there in bed, listening for any sign that someone nearby might be awake, wondering if she had known all along. Was she lying to me? Watching me? The next morning, I walked out into the hallway to check my mailbox, half expecting some eerie confirmation. That's when I noticed something new. A sticky note on my door that said, "Hope your fridge survived the outage, Ray Red Heart." My stomach dropped. He knew. I didn't know whether to be angry, terrified, or fascinated. Instead of texting her, I decided to play along. I acted completely normal in our chats, but I started paying closer attention to everything she said. I noticed she'd always respond a little too quickly to things that happened around me, like the sound of construction outside or a fire truck passing. It was like she could hear what I heard. I started doing small tests. I'd move furniture around loudly just to see if she'd mention someone rearranging their life next door. I'd leave packages in the hallway to check if she'd reference them in conversation. She always did. She wasn't just in my building, she was right next door. When I realized that, I felt this mix of betrayal and curiosity. We had become genuinely close. I told her about my worst breakup, my anxiety, my fears, all while she was apparently listening through a wall. It made me feel stupid and exposed. But I also didn't want to confront her yet. I wanted to know why. For the next week, I tried to catch her slipping up. One night, I even went outside my apartment door at the same time I knew she'd be online, just to see if I could hear her voice through the wall. Sure enough, I recognized the faint sound of laughter that matched her mic audio. That confirmed everything. Ray, my mysterious online friend, was my next-door neighbor. So I came up with a plan. I told her I was having a bad week and wanted to order takeout to cheer myself up. She agreed and joked about doing the same from her city. I ordered from the same local restaurant I always used, one that delivered quickly to my building. 10 minutes later, I got a notification that my food had been delivered. I peeked through the peephole and saw the delivery guy knocking on her door. Asterisk. I almost laughed out loud. The next day I left a note on her door that said, "Nice choice on the takeout last night. Hope the noodles were good, neighbor." An hour later I heard a knock. I opened my door and there she was, standing there in shock holding my note. Her face turned pale like she'd been caught stealing something. For a few seconds we just stood there. It felt like the strangest déjà vu, seeing someone I'd talked to for months without ever realizing she was this close. She looked terrified but I couldn't help but laugh. It wasn't a cruel laugh, more like disbelief. We both kinda just stood there awkwardly until I finally asked why she lied. She said she hadn't meant for it to go this far. Apparently, she joined the same Discord server after moving into the building and recognized my username from the mail label outside my door. She thought it'd be funny to message me without revealing who she was, but she hadn't expected us to actually become friends. By the time we clicked, she didn't know how to tell me the truth. It was weirdly human and messed up at the same time. We ended up talking for hours that day, face to face for the first time. It was tense, emotional, awkward, and kind of surreal. Part of me wanted to be angry, but another part understood how loneliness can make people do strange things. Over time we actually became real friends, this time with no secrets. We started hanging out, cooking together, even walking to the cafe down the street on weekends. I'd never have believed it if someone told me the person who'd catfished me was going to become my favorite neighbor. But then something changed. The more I learned about Ray, the more I started realizing how much she'd learned about me during those months. She knew my habits, my triggers, my schedule, everything. It made me uneasy. I noticed she'd show up outside at the exact times I'd be heading out. She'd text me before I even mentioned something, like she could anticipate my thoughts. At first I brushed it off as coincidence again, but deep down I felt that familiar discomfort creeping back. One evening I walked into the hallway and noticed her door slightly open, and for a second I caught a glimpse of her computer screen, my own social media profile open. I froze. It was like a punch in the gut. I didn't say anything that night. I just walked back to my apartment, locked the door, and sat there for hours thinking about everything. Maybe she wasn't malicious. Maybe she was just lonely, but it didn't feel right anymore. The next morning I sent her a message explaining that I needed space. I didn't accuse her or start a fight. I just said I wanted to step back from everything. She didn't reply, which almost made it worse. For a while things were quiet. We stopped talking online and I barely saw her around. Then one afternoon I came home to find a letter slipped under my door. It was from her. It wasn't an apology in the traditional sense. It was more like a confession, about how she'd been going through a depressive phase when she moved in, how talking to me made her feel human again, and how terrified she was that I'd hate her if I found out. She ended it by saying she was moving out soon because she didn't want to make me uncomfortable anymore. I sat there reading it over and over, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. I never replied. A week later she was gone. That was months ago, but sometimes I still think about her, about how strange and fragile connection can be. We live in a world where people spend hours talking to strangers online, feeling safer behind a screen than face to face. Ray blurred that line in a way I'll never forget. I don't know if I'll ever reach out again. Part of me misses her, or maybe I miss who I thought she was. But every time I walk past that empty apartment across the hall, I can't help wondering if she's somewhere out there in another Discord server, trying to start over. Maybe one day I'll get a message from someone new with the same dry humor and love for tea. Maybe I'll ignore it this time. Or maybe despite everything I'll reply, just to see if it's her again.